Johnny Storm is a character who first hit the panels of Marvel Comics back in Fantastic Four issue 1 in 1961, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Repurposed from a character who had existed back in the golden age when Marvel was still Timely Comics, Johnny Storm was one of the members of the publisher's first major superhero team. Gaining his powers after the spacecraft was bombarded by cosmic rays. Now able to engulf his body entirely in flames, fly, and absorb fires, the character has become one of the most recognizable Marvel heroes, even if you're not a big fan of the Fantastic Four. But today, rather than looking further into Storm's 616 self, we're taking a look at his alternate timeline counterparts with our list of the top 10 alternate versions of the Human Torch. Let's get to it. Starting us off in at number 10, 1602. The 1602 Earth, technically known as Earth 311, is a timeline that takes place in, you guessed it, the year 1602, over in Europe. Our beloved heroes and villains are all of that era, and mutants exist, but instead of being called mutants, they're called witchbreed, and are hunted because of their differences. Johnny Storm was once a hot-headed young man who had to leave London after a duel, and ended up joining up with Richard Reed on his explorations alongside his sister, who was fleeing a man she did not love. On these adventures, he gained his powers aboard Richard's ship, the Fantastic, which encountered a wave of energy from the Sargasso Sea which turned his body into an element like fire. This gives him the same abilities as his 616 self. They ended up getting captured by Otto Von Doom, who guess is an amalgamation of Otto Octavius and Dr. Doom, and he's thrown under a waterfall as an attempt to calm his powers, but they manage to escape and join up with Sir Nicholas Fury. Such a fascinating Earth. Ruins. The Ruins Johnny Storm is a very depressing one, as is the fate of pretty much every other hero or villain in the Ruins timeline. So, for context, Ruins, which came out in 1995, follows a character named Philip Sheldon, a reporter who believed his world was warped by some unknown force. I mean, he actually technically was right about that. He seeks out answers by traveling the country, interviewing those with superpowers, most of which suffer from medical or other horrible circumstances due to the variabilities that made them special in the 616. Just Google the Hulk from Ruins and you'll see exactly what we mean about it being really depressing. He's a giant tumor. Anywho, Johnny Storm's character still takes part in the spaceflight that would give the Fantastic Four their powers, except it did not work out the same way that the 616 timeline did. Johnny's body was found near the crash site, with his body having caught fire on a cellular level, burning from the bones outward. All we see is a pretty depressing gray corpse. So yep, you're welcome, moving on. In at number 8, the Fox Films Human Torch. How could we not do a list on alternate versions of the Human Torch and not include the oh so hilariously bad Fox Fantastic Four films? Now, for the sake of this number, we are looking specifically at the first iteration of Fantastic Four movies, where the Human Torch is played by none other than the MCU's Captain America himself, Chris Evans. This cinematic version of Johnny Storm is initially all about getting girls and making money, but eventually goes on to learn to rise up to his new responsibilities after Victor Von Doom, aka Dr. Doom, almost kills the entire team. Evans would portray this version of Storm in 2 films, the first in 2005 and the second in 2007, The Rise of the Silver Surfer, which has become notorious for how terrible of a movie it was. It is literal garbage fire. Johnny Storm being that garbage. Or with Johnny Storm being that fire that is setting the... it's just shit. Don't watch it. The movie is bad, so it makes me feel bad too. In at number 7, Jonathan Sturm from Earth 33. Jonathan Sturm is a different kind of hero. For starters, this timeline takes place in the 1950s and 60s, and the Fantastic Four are powerless. He first appears in Fantastic Four Unstable Molecules issue 1 from 2003, the story that places the members of the quartet in a realistic narrative rather than one that involves superpowers. In the 60s, Johnny, Reed Richards, Ben Grimm, and his sister Susan Sturm would become national heroes and government agents thanks to the space program. And to get super meta with you, the heroes on this Earth inspire comic book superheroes, with Sturm being the inspiration for Johnny Storm, the comic book Human Torch in his world. He also has a crush on a comic book character called Vapor Girl, who is a hero who can turn herself into mist. Fire and mist don't necessarily go together, but that's okay, cause she's a fictional girl. Moving on to number 6, MC2, aka Earth 982. The MC2 is an alternate timeline in which the Age of Heroes, which is initially marked by the first appearance of the Fantastic Four in the 616 universe, occurs 15 years earlier than it did in the main continuity of the comics. The result is that many of the OG heroes who first emerged have retired or stepped down, with a new generation of heroes taking their place. So in this timeline, Johnny Storm has tagged along with Reed Richards on his ship, the one that crashed, leading to them getting their powers. Now originally he is very hot-headed and rash, but this Johnny would eventually grow up in a major way, going from feeling as if he wasn't taken seriously on the team since he was the youngest member, to eventually leading the team after the other members retired for the most part, with the team now called the Fantastic Five. He's experienced and mature, and also married to Elijah, who acts as the new Miss Fantastic. Up next at 5, Shame Itself, the Earth 11201 Human Torch. Almost every superhero in the Marvel Universe has at least one alternate version that is a comedic take on their character. Shame Itself is one of the many comedic series that Marvel has produced over the years, an amusing take on the Fear Itself crossover story event from 2011. There's actually 2 versions that appear in Shame Itself of the Human Torch, but the one that we're looking at today goes by the name of HAMMOND Torch. Actually, despite having the same powers and undergoing the same accident as his 616 self did, this version of Johnny Storm has decided to use a different method of fighting crime. He uses his powers to fling spicy Chinese food at his foes, Dr. Doom and Galactus included. I have many questions. How spicy is spicy? What levels of spice does it take to knock out Dr. Doom, let alone Galactus? Does he just target villains who don't do well with spice? Do they have specific dietary restrictions that we aren't privy to? Is that even ethical? And more importantly, does the HAMMOND Torch acquire Chinese food himself, like at a restaurant, or does he make it? Has he found a way of materializing it himself via his powers? Otherwise, we're looking at a pretty costly method of fighting crime. Just saying, a lot of questions. I get it, it's a joke, but you know, I want to know. I'm curious. And at number 4, Too Many Human Torches from What If Volume 2 Issue 11. What If Volume 2 Issue 11 features multiple different kinds of versions of the Fantastic Four. There are 4 different stories in which each of the characters gain the powers of their other team members. We'll only be focusing on one story at this number though. What if the Fantastic Four all had the same power as the Human Torch? In this hypothetical story, the quartet's tale begins with their rocket crashing and Johnny bursting into flames unharmed. All 4 of the team members experience that exact same thing, and have all the powers that only Johnny normally has in the 616. When attempting to defeat the villain Miracle Man, the team end up accidentally killing a civilian child when they set a building on fire, assuming that that building was actually abandoned. The tragedy is taken to court and the judge determines it wasn't the team's fault, but they end up disassembling due to the traumatic memory. They all end up going down different career paths, with only Ben continuing to be a superhero, taking on the name of the Human Torch. Meanwhile, for Johnny, he ends up becoming a race car driver. So I guess it kinda worked out for him, doing something he loves. And at number 3, the Human Lantern. The Amalgam Universe is the combination of DC Comics and Marvel Comics, a universe in which all of their heroes have been amalgamated into their own unique crossover individuals. In this universe, the Human Torch has been amalgamated with DC's Green Lantern, creating the Human Lantern. First appearing in Super Soldier Man of War Volume 1 Issue 1 from 1997, Human Lantern can use pyrokinesis, similar to his Marvel counterpart. And one can assume that he can do all the things that the Golden Age Green Lantern Alan Scott can do, although we never see him fully in action to make that assumption. Now it's also assumed that the Green Lantern he's been amalgamated with is Alan Scott based on his uniform. Now his entire body is engulfed by a mystic flame, something that he's always looking to put to good use in a plethora of ways, like baking cakes, actually. As a part of the All-Star Winners Squadron, he's always doing things like baking his teammates treats, even though sometimes they don't have much of an interest in snack attacking. Baking isn't all he does though. During World War II, Human Lantern was known as the Beacon of Justice, so I guess that's something he can throw on his CV at the end of the day. And at number 2, Earth A, aka Earth 721. The Jonathan Storm of Earth 721 is a really interesting departure from the regular version of the character. His story diverts when he never takes the spaceflight up with the rest of the Fantastic Four, and therefore never gets his Human Torch powers, with Reed Richards actually gaining the flame powers along with his stretching ones instead. Johnny, on the other hand, ends up signing up to fight in the Vietnam War and is wounded in battle. He's found by this Earth's Archon, who erases his memories and restructures his mind so he can serve as the guardian of the nexus between Earth 616, 721, and the 5th dimension, and Johnny ends up taking on the new name of Guard, spelled G-A-A-R-D. Creative. Guard basically looked like a glorified super-powered hockey player, and even engaged with the Thing in a hockey-style shootout, causing the Nexus to be destroyed, and Guard to skate off into its void. The void does something unexpected though. It turns him into a character called Vanguard, and gives him the ability to destroy realities. He gives himself a new purpose, which is to travel to different realities and destroy the ones he believes are redundant. Eventually he encounters the 616 Human Torch, gets a change of heart, and decides he'll end his tirade, rather helping timelines find closure instead of destroying them altogether. He can also manipulate energy and reality, so that's pretty darn impressive too. And finally, in our number 1 spot, the OG Human Torch, the Android Human Torch. Back in the day, long before Johnny Storm became the Human Torch, there was another Marvel character who operated under that mantle, an android known as Jim Hammond, who first appeared in Marvel's predecessor, Timely Comics. He fought alongside the likes of Captain America and Namor back in the Golden Age, working with them to take down Axis enemies at the height of World War II. But he would fall into obscurity in the 50s, much like many other superheroes at the end of the Golden Age. And eventually by 1961, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby would repurpose his name and his powers for Johnny Storm. So what was his deal? Hammond was an android created by a professor named Phineas T. Horton in Brooklyn, New York, and when he was unveiled at a press conference, thanks to being exposed to oxygen, he burst into flames. Despite being a sentient robot, many thought that he was a threat to the public's safety, and he was sealed in concrete as a result. But thanks to a crack in that concrete that let oxygen in, he broke free and eventually learned to control his flames, after accidentally setting some parts of New York City on fire first. The character would eventually return to the comics and the modern day Marvel continuity when the Mad Thinker reactivated him to fight against the Fantastic Four. He refused to kill the heroes and eventually went on to join the West Coast Avengers, or rather the Avengers West Coast when Marvel changed the title so it would be grouped together with other Avenger titles in comic book stores. The more you know. These days the Android Human Torch has joined up with the reformed Invaders team, which is pretty dope. Nice to see that he is still kicking around. Alright, there we have it friends. What other alternate versions of the Human Torch can you think of? Should we do a part 2 of this list? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know. If you dug this video, spread that love, hit that like button, and hey, why not subscribe to our channel while you're at it? We'd love it if you guys stuck around some more and joined the Nerd Squad. In the meantime though, thanks for watching friends. I'll catch you all in the next video.